Nate, not sure if you're aware of this, but Justin Herbert's pretty good.
I've said this before on the show. I have the same note. I think that Justin Herbert guy is pretty damn good, and I think he was willing to try some stuff tonight. I was seeing some Justin Herbert creative plays. Had a throw, he slip right there. Some like creative plays right there. That was pretty. That was a great performance from Justin Herbert, and really the Chargers defense. We'll get to it in a sec, but that Justin Herbert guy, he can play some football. He can sling that pigskin around.
What he did under pressure today, just seemingly every time someone was in his face, this is a skill that he has had for a very long time. And there have been some iffy moments with this over the last few weeks as their offensive line has crumbled even further than it had over the last couple of years. Losing your right tackle, your left tackle, and your starting center last week. They couldn't even operate against the Raiders. Yeah. But even in the first half of the season, when they weren't rolling and when he was banged up with a rib injury, if you look at how few sacks he was taking compared to how often he was getting pressured, his ability to not make bad plays, horrific plays, and to skirt around pressure in the pocket, keep plays alive, it's a combination of a lot of stuff for me. I think it's processing, athletic ability, which for a guy his size is super rare. The way that he can move and manipulate the pocket for somebody that's 6'6" is I've never seen anybody except for a guy we might talk about a little bit later who can do it. Like him and Lawrence at that size are really the first guys I've seen that can do that. Josh Allen, 6'5". We've had the tall quarterback conversation a million different times, but watching him do that is pretty remarkable. And then the strength to get some throws off. So today the Dolphins blitzed him, according to Next Gen Stats, on 43.6% of his dropbacks. He was pressured on 31% of his dropbacks in this game, and he finished 39 of 51 for 367 yards. And that doesn't even begin to mention some of the weird third and short play calls. We can talk about them. The Carter one at the beginning of the game, a screen to Keenan Allen that wasn't really a screen. I mean, there's still the same Chargers frustrations, but this is one of those days where he just outshines all of that stuff.
That's it. And that's where just getting into that whole social media quarterback stuff is always why it's so frustrating about with Justin Herbert is he makes those highlight throws, the shot play to Mike Williams, that you have pressure on, even though that play is designed to wad it up so the quarterback has plenty of space. He still has two guys beelining right at him and he puts down the money. It's all the in-between stuff that Justin Herbert does. He is the twitchiness, the size, the movement in the pocket, the big throws, the big arm. It's everything in between all those flashy things. That's why I laughed all the time when people are like, people just got, ogle over those 3 throws. It's like, no, we ogle over the 15 throws in between that where he's making a combination.
It's the combination.
Yes.
It's the highlights plus the process.
Yeah.
That's what makes him so just rare in terms of the skill set and the combination. It's not just the highlight plays. And when you see games like tonight, there's a reason why I thought that he was going to knock on the door of being in that top tier of quarterbacks this year. And it didn't end up happening for a lot of different reasons in terms of his overall production for the season. But this argument that he's not a borderline elite quarterback or that he hasn't broken through yet, the word you used on Friday, I thought was perfect. He's exceptional. He is exceptional. And where you want to stack him up among the guys in the league, that's a conversation we can have at a different time, but he is exceptional. He is one of those quarterbacks that you win because of, not just win with. And tonight is a serious reminder of that. And one of the things that I found strangest about the discourse, and there has been discourse last week, is this idea that he hasn't really broken out yet. And maybe he hasn't had the MVP type season, but the stat I threw out on our Thursday preview show, over the last 12 years since 2010, among guys with at least 1,000 pass attempts, he's 11th at EPA per dropback.
Yeah.
He's already broken out. He's already had that season where he was an elite or borderline elite quarterback. And even if this has been uneven over the course of this year as things have crumbled around him, it's so strange to me that people don't think he's had that kick down the door moment, because I thought he had it last year.
Yeah. And that's what's so funny to me. And they're like, oh, he's dipped back this year. He has the potential. No, he already did it all. Like ever since he's been in the league, I think he's 5th in EPA per dropback or tied for 5th. And the guys above him are the guys you think that would be above him. It's Aaron Rodgers, Mahomes, Josh Allen, I think Deshaun Watson, and I believe he's tied with Tom Brady. It's like he's already there. Like it's just that, yes.
I'm sure Burrow's getting there now. after
Burrow's
what
right
he's done over
behind
the
right
last
there.
couple of
I
years.
mean,
Yeah.
and that's the thing is Burrow also had the weird rookie year with he got injured and stuff. So, but like now it's like, yeah, Burrow's climbing up the ranks. But that's the thing. I'm glad you said that first fourth down call. If the Chargers didn't win this game, I was going to say that play was the encapsulation of all the Chargers issues, or it was just the Chargers as a whole. I wouldn't even say issues. Brandon Staley, awesome, goes for it in fourth and goal early in the game. Okay, cool. That I love it. Yeah, be aggressive. Then it was a Joe Lombardi special where they isolate DeAndre Carter, the guy that's played 700 snaps leading into this year for 4 different teams. And it was like, I understand. Again, we've talked about this a lot with our frustrations with the Chargers offense. It's a lot of stuff that seems good on the chalkboard. And then you get into practice and it's like, well, they covered it. Or what else you got? Like, how else are you going to make this easier on your team? So that play was like an encapsulation. But again, Herbert overcomes this stuff. And that's why, and Austin Eckler too. But that fourth down, there's a fourth down, third down throw, third down out route to Keenan Allen.
It's third and
I would
five.
say, yeah, third and 5. What is it for that fourth quarter, third down throw with about 9 minutes left. And that right there is Justin Herbert. Puts it on the money, tightly covered, covered like a covered hard route to throw, and puts on the money like it was nothing.
Allen's reaction was amazing. The fact that his first reaction was to turn around and just point straight at him. That's how you know. That guy has seen a lot of football, Keenan Allen, over the last decade. He's seen a lot of really good quarterbacking. And for him to react like that, I think says everything it needs to say.
That's what it is. That's the stuff that Herbert does. And that's why I've made this joke before with the processing stuff. So he makes that flashy throw. It goes to the right spot. And it's just like, that's him right then and there. And it's not Drew Brees, it's Drew Windstorm, like how he processes and everything, because he does all that stuff. He reads, there's all the jokes about stick that everyone's running to the ground now. But the thing is, Herbert gets through all of it. He'll hit the middle check down like Drew Brees used to, but then all of a sudden he's pulling up and throwing 60-yard bombs. It's the combination that makes him so special.
Who knows what'll happen over the next 4 weeks or so, 5 weeks or so. I mean, the Chargers are very much back in the playoff hunt now after winning that game, but this is still a very flawed team. Yes. And it's not about that to me. It's about the fact that over the last few days, over the last couple of weeks, there have been these rumblings about like what's Justin for Herbert's future and what kind of quarterback is he really. Right. And I think you and I both were looking at that stuff and just being like, what? Yeah, like, I just don't really understand that. We can talk about his ceiling and where that exists, but his floor and what he is, I don't really have a lot of doubts or confusion or concerns about that. Like, I think he is firmly one of the most important, valuable players, period, in the NFL over the next 5 years.
His situation can't get worse than this year, and he's already playing productive football. So it's like, okay, we know what his floor is now. Like, this is it. There's zero complaints from my end, at least.
So the Jets lost, which we'll get into a little bit later. We'll talk about the Chargers playoff chances when we talk about that game. But they're really flipped today with that win. I mean, they have a pretty good chance of actually sneaking into this thing now. A team that is still very likely going to make the playoffs, but another rough outing is the team that they beat tonight with the Dolphins. Tua finishes 10 of 28 for 145 yards. You mentioned before we started, if you take out that bomb to Tyreek Hill where Michael Davis slips, what are the numbers?
9 for 27 for 85 yards.
Jesus,
which is pretty dire.
So if you're trying to diagnose what went wrong tonight, what would you say? Is it connected to last week? It's terrible. I shouldn't ask 2 questions at once, but I just did. Where are you at about what might be the root cause of this?
Well, you saw the O-line blemishes come up, and when the stuff, you're not getting those chunk plays that they live off of, that were, again, what we always talk about, easy buttons. It was a game where the Chargers were like, okay, do the hard stuff over and over. And you could see that the Dolphins struggled with it. And it kind of in a different, some similarities, I say same philosophical like way to go about it that the 49ers did last week, as far as being aggressive, being physical with this Dolphins, especially this Dolphins receiving group. Make sure they get hands on them, no free releases, and maybe different coverages and different looks. I think there's a lot. What I'm seeing is that Tua trusts Mike McDaniel to point him in the right direction and stuff. He can progress to get to that spot, but it's ingrained in him. He ad-libbed more than he ever has tonight. I think he had like 3 scrambles tonight, which is like only like the third multi-scramble game of the season. And you could see it is because he was starting to go like, well, I have to get to 3 and 3's covered. Oh, shoot. Or I have to get to 2 and 2's covered. All right, I guess I got to go scramble now. That's why you're starting to see that, because it was a lot of the stuff. It felt like the Chargers were showing the one look, the pre-snap look, and then the post-snap look, either bailing from the line of scrimmage or getting physical with the routes, changing up the timing. It felt like in its own way, a very mini version of the famous Colts Patriots game in the playoffs where they changed the illegal contact rules. I'm not saying they're going to change all that, not change it.
Honestly, though, it's a great thing to bring up because there was a
That's what I
play, I
felt.
think the first or second drive where Drew Tranquil Tyreek Hill was in the slot and it was
Yeah.
incompletion that
exactly what I'm
almost
talking
turned into an interception.
Yeah.
And he rocks Tyreek Hill about at 5 yards. So they're trying to skirt that line a little bit in this game, and how aggressive they were playing all across the board. Next gen stats, really interesting numbers. 35% press coverage for the Chargers in this game. Single season high for them. Second highest the Dolphins have faced in a game this year. The Bills were at 40% in week 3. The only reception that the Dolphins had against press in this game was that Tyreek Hill 60-yard touchdown.
Which was just
and they did it 35% of the time. Yeah. So I think that, and they didn't play a ton of man coverage, but they were physical in zone coverage.
The example you brought up was slot press. We always think of press on the outside.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You're getting contact on the slot. So you're not getting those overs and those things over the middle.
And teams are so terrified of them during the first half of the season. And then when Tua was really rolling, I just wanted somebody to get up and start playing this type of style, because if you're going to go down swinging. There's just no reason to sit back and let them get these chunks over and over and over again.
Right.
Because at some point you're going to have to disrupt the machine, because that's what Tua's trust and what that machine looked like was so vital to why they were successful, that I think that you have to rattle that trust a little bit in the timing of it. And I think that's exactly what you saw tonight. And just little tiny tweaks. Staley's a really good specific game planner. The idea of on certain looks where, I can't remember exactly what the down and distance situation was. It looked like 2-man, but it might not have been, where they had heavy inside leverage on Waddle and Hill, both lined up on the left side with safety help over the top of both of them. And just like, all right, it's heavy inside leverage. They want to hit these in breakers, and there's nowhere to go with it. And so I just thought that he called a great game. The game plan was really good defensively. And then you have a quarterback who looked pretty damn good. And guess what? Looked pretty damn good with his guys back. Yeah. I want to say, coming into this game, I think that Josh Palmer, Keenan Allen, and Mike Williams had played like a dozen snaps together or something like that this season. And even with the offensive line concerns, having those 3 guys back and together, and just their full arsenal of receiving options, you saw what sort of a difference that makes. And you saw what that quarterback can play like when he has even a smidge of help.
Yeah, it was pretty dire. Like, there was a lot of points for how poor the O-lines were playing on both sides of the ball. Like, it was, I credit to what the Dolphins, how they designed their stuff and a couple Tua things, but then also just Herbert being Herbert. Like, it's like credit to those guys, because man, there was some bad, there's a lot of O-line leakiness in this game. And that's what Christian Wilkins had a standout game. He's had a standout season. It's pretty cool watching.
Awesome. I was bummed that we didn't really mention him last week, because we were so worried about how the offense played against the Niners and the Purdy situation. He was fantastic against San Francisco last week, and I meant to talk about it. I want to say, and I'm not, probably is still the case after this game, he led the league in run stops for loss or non-sack tackles for loss among any players in the league after last week. I mean, the level of disruption that he is creating week in, week out is remarkable. And this game was another example of that.
That's my new favorite stat put together in True Media. It's
a great
TFLs, non-sack TFLs plus run stops. So it's like, and he leads the league. He just took the lead again tonight. Matt Milano, I think, is in second. But yeah, he is just a monster.
Just think about that. Think about how disruptive you have to be as a defensive tackle to lead the league in that stat when you're going against guys like Matt Milano. It's incredible.
It is.
How concerned are you about the Dolphins moving forward with the offense and the way that it's operating right now? Do you feel like this is a blip? Do you feel like this is the sign of what's to come? Where are you at?
They now put it on tape. That's what's scary. You don't want to be doing this right as you're heading into the postseason. Like, I've loved what the Dolphins have done on offense, but you're now seeing our preseason worries kind of come to fruition in kind of at the worst time for them. Week 14 charging into December and January. And then that's the thing, is they're not playing like pushovers the rest of the way. You just mentioned that the Bills were the ones that pressed them the most last. Bills are one of the smartest defenses. They play them next. And then you got the Packers, which is, they might be starting Jordan Love, who knows? But then the Patriots are a physical team. And then you got the Jets, who are a physical defense as well. So it's kind of a murderer's row for this offense. I think the defense is kind of what we know. It's middle of the packish, maybe a little above averagey. You can run on them a little bit. They're going to try and blitz you a little bit. But I think this offense you're starting to see some of the cracks or just the imperfections of this offense become more glaring. As that's what happens. That's when the season gets late,
It
you have so
happens
much film
every year to
every
everyone.
year.
And
Everybody.
I can't remember what week it was. We did a show with David Hellman. We were talking about the Super Bowl contenders. And I was talking about the Dolphins. And I said, I just want to see them work through whatever little dip is coming for their offense, because it's coming.
It always comes.
Almost every single offense except Kansas City. The Chiefs don't really have those like 2 or 3 game swoons because Mahomes just doesn't have really bad games. He threw 3 interceptions today, but if you look at the overall numbers, like he doesn't bottom out. And that's what makes them different. For the most part, almost every other offense you're going to talk about is going to have that little blip over the course of a season. And I remember the Bills last year in the middle of the year had that exact sort of thing. Yep. And I wanted to see what would happen when the Dolphins had to work through that. And they absolutely can. There's a chance that they can, but now we're going to see it. And now we're going to see what they look like coming out on the other side, because that ultimately is what dictates how much of a threat you're going to be come playoff time. So this is going to be a really important stretch for Mike McDaniel and that team. It's the first time we've ever seen him have to do this.
Yep.
It's the first time we've ever seen Tua have to do this.
Yep.
And to me, it's a pretty telling process. So I'm excited to see how it goes.
This is the most fascinating thing. This is why I'm so high on what the Bengals are doing right now, because they have got punched in the mouth and they counterpunched. And now it's like, oh, this is awesome to watch. But it took them a while, but they got there. But honestly, watching the Chargers, the last week, I want to say that the Dolphins ran that money play, the RPO wheel play, like I think it was 18 times. I want to say off the top of my head, maybe even 20. And the Chargers covered it today. It was the first team I've seen a team consistently cover it throughout a game, at least 3 times I saw. So it's like, okay, they took away your easy button. Now what do you got? And that's what we talk about, game planning coaches. This is where they start rising to the top. And that's what's going to be fun. I've really liked what Mike McDaniel has done. I like what Tua, how he's operating this offense. But now they just got punched them out 2 weeks in a row. So what else you got?